Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket on a beautiful Monday morning. Live 10 a.m. from now on, 10 a.m. to noon. That started last week on Tuesday. I hope you had a great weekend. I know I did. You know, during this time of the year, the question is always like, what am I going to talk about tomorrow? What am I going to talk about on Monday? You know, because the Pacer season is over and I can only talk so much about the Indianapolis Colts, right? Especially during OTAs and all that. So it's like, what am I going to talk about? And then Caitlin Clark shows up. And she just is a bucket load of content. It's great. Okay. Caitlin Clark isn't liked. I think that's very well established now at this point. That's not new. The cheap shots are, though, and it's kind of disappointing. The Indiana Fever played the only WNBA game on Saturday against the Chicago Sky. That is Angel Reese's team, so it's Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, the rivalry, but the WNBA edition of it. The Fever win. They pick up their second win of the season. They beat the Chicago Sky 71-70 on Saturday, and no one's talking about the game. No one's talking about the game, and it was a great game. Like, that is what the conversation should be about today. Okay? Like, it was a single-digit game the entire way. Nobody led, but, like, the Fever were up by 9 at one point. That's it. Okay? Like, that was the biggest lead of the game. Back and forth, close contest the whole way, and we should have walked away from what was a really good basketball game on Saturday, a really entertaining game. We should have walked away with some sort of take of like, oh, the future of the league is bright. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, we're going to have this, you know, for another decade. It's going to be great, yada, yada, yada. Like, that should have been the takeaway. But instead, we're talking about the same thing that we've been talking about with the WNBA really ever since Caitlin Clark entered the league. We're talking about the pettiness. And once again, Charles Barkley was exactly right.
You women out there, y'all petty, man. Hey, LeBron, you're 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty, girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world.
Oh, you are.
Y'all should be thanking that girl for getting y'all ass private charters, all the money and visibility she bringing to the WNBA. Don't be petty like dudes. Listen. What she's accomplished, give her flowers. Stop being petty, all you women out there. She got y'all ass charters. She bringing all y'all this money to the table, but y'all being petty like dudes. LeBron, you are 100% right. Y'all girls, stop being petty. Caitlin Clark, thank you for bringing all that money and shine to the WNBA.
Well,
that was Charles Barkley, who was exactly right. He said that about a week ago now, about just how petty the WNBA is. And it's a shame because the game on Saturday was good. And look, the pettiness of the WNBA could wind up costing them a lot of money. Okay. These players could wind up costing themselves a lot of money. They could cost their sport. The WNBA, this thing that people have been pushing and they've wanted for people to watch for forever. They could wind up costing the WNBA a chance of being the premier summer sport. Because let's be fully honest here. There is no premier summer sport. I know that, like, we like to think that it's baseball. I know there are some hardcore, you know, baseball fans out there that are going to watch in the dog days of July and they're going to enjoy it and they're going to overreact to every, you know, decision made over the course of a 162 game season. But most baseball fans like me, we're waiting for October. We're just waiting for the playoffs. So the summer months, they are open for the taking. And the WNBA, they have this new star and they have an opportunity to kind of grab the attention of sports fans right now. But the pettiness of the WNBA is getting in the way of that. Now, with that being said, there are people out there who were saying, you know, that, you know, they got to protect Caitlin Clark, which is true. Like, the WNBA needs to step in and do a better job of that. But at the same time, like, this isn't a surprise, like how competitive these games are. It's not a surprise that these WNBA players don't like Caitlin Clark. Like, this is expected. Okay, like, you have to have expected that the other players in the WNBA would not like Caitlin Clark. When we look at the NBA, we see the exact same thing throughout history. NBA players went at Victor Wembanyama this year because they didn't like that this rookie from France was going to show up and be great. They didn't like it, so they went at him. Okay, when LeBron James came into the league, what happened? NBA dudes went at him, and this is what happens when generational talents show up. Okay, the people that have been professionals for a long time don't like it. They're like, hey, I've been doing this, for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You're not gonna sit here and tell me that this rookie, this 22-year-old girl is gonna show up in the league and just dominate. And so it's, from a competitive standpoint, this is completely normal. Okay, when young players show up that are supposed to be great, the older players challenge them. That's just the way that sports work, and we're going to continue to see this. I think we're going to see it this year in the NFL with Caleb Williams and the Bears. This is just the way that things work in professional sports. Like, just listen to what LeBron James's future teammates in Cleveland said when they were about to get the number 1 overall pick, a guy who was clearly a generational talent, a guy who was clearly going to change the league. This is what his future Cleveland Cavalier teammates had to say about LeBron James before he was drafted.
We have better players than him in his position already on our team, though. His potential is probably sky's the limit for him, though.
Yeah, LeBron is just going to add to what we need and, just make things a little bit easier.
And he would come in and make an immediate impact like a Caron Butler, did for the Miami Heat.
I don't think you can really just bring a high school player in and really just think your team going to really turn around like that. If he come, you know what I'm saying, he can just hop on our bandwagon and hopefully we can do something big.
Those were LeBron James's teammates in Cleveland before he was drafted. Okay, they weren't buying it because this is what every professional athlete does when a new, young, up-and-coming player is rising. Like, they don't like it. They're going to push back because they want to see them do it. And when those players show up, they're going to challenge them. And that's good. Like, that competitive balance is important. Like, it's good that these WNBA players are testing Caitlin Clark. Like, that is a good thing because if she showed up in the WNBA and they didn't challenge her and it was really easy for her, that would be boring. Okay, it's fun watching young players overcome this adversity when they first come into whatever league it is that they're playing in. What shouldn't fly, though, is what everybody is pointing out. What shouldn't fly is the dirty play. If somebody body-checked Victor Wembanyama this year, they would have been ejected. Okay, if Caleb Williams this year gets hit in the head or if a defensive lineman dives into his knees or does some sort of dirty play with the intention of hurting him, the NFL has rules in place to protect him. And the WNBA, meanwhile, with the first relevant player in the history of their league, she gets elbowed in the face once, looked like it was on purpose. They didn't call foul. Then she gets body checked, and the player that lays her out doesn't get ejected. That can't happen. Can't happen. I can't remember which game it was this year for the Pacers. I think they're playing the Rockets. That sounds about right. And they were, Dylan Brooks and those guys in Houston, they can be kind of chippy. They got into Halliburton a little bit. They banged him around pretty good. And then the next day, they're like, Jameer Johnson, James Johnson, excuse me. We're going to sign you so that if any of that happens again, we have you. And they know not to mess with Halliburton. And look, the Fever should probably invest in some sort of enforcer. I don't know if that's fully necessary. Like, even looking back at the replay, like, Clark flopped a little bit. Like, she probably could have remained standing. But, hey, you got to do what you have to do. Either way, though, the WNBA has to do a better job of protecting the merchandise because that's what Caitlin Clark is. The reason why they have, the chartered flights now, and the reason why they have all these new things is because of Caitlin Clark. Okay, like, she is the cash cow. She is the thing that's going to bring money and notoriety to the WNBA. And if you don't believe that, then look, if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark, I wouldn't be discussing the WNBA right now. I promise you that. The WNBA has to figure out a way to protect the merchandise. Like, if I walked into, let's say, a Nike store, okay, and I pulled out a black Sharpie, and I walked around the Nike store and I'm marking on shoes and sweatshirts and hoodies and all that kind of stuff, they would immediately throw me out and potentially ban me from every Nike store, right? And they would be right to do so because they make money off of that merchandise. And If I'm ruining the merchandise, therefore I'm ruining profits, and I need to be punished in some way, shape, or form. I know Angel Reese and I don't even know the girl's name that body checked Caitlin Clark. Like, I know they both got fined. It wasn't a ton of money, but still, like, these WNBA players, they are hurting their most precious piece of merchandise. And the WNBA, the higher ups, cannot allow that to happen. Okay, if the WNBA, was a jewelry store, then Caitlin Clark would be locked in a safe with fake versions of her out for people to see. Like, she is by far the most valuable thing that the WNBA not only has right now, but has ever had in the history of their existence. And if they aren't careful, they're going to hurt her. Then the merchandise will be damaged. And what happens when merchandise gets damaged? The value of it goes down. I'm telling you right now, if something happens to, Caitlin Clark, like, let's say, somebody decides to undercut her and she sprains her ankle and she's out for 3 weeks. Guess what? I'm not talking about for 3 weeks. The WNBA, and that hurts profits and people won't watch. Okay? If Caitlin Clark gets hurt or for some reason she can't play, people will stop watching. If that happens, then profits go down. Can't have, like, they don't want that to happen. Like, these WNBA players are so ignorant to the fact that their future paychecks are dependent upon Caitlin Clark. Okay? Like, if something happens to Caitlin Clark and she stops playing, then the views will go down, the profits will go down, the chartered flights will go away. Like, I've never seen a group of people so anxious to go from these chartered nice flights to Spirit Airlines, right? Instead of reaching a point where their salaries go up, right? Like, if Caitlin Clark gets hurt, none of that happens. The WNBA doesn't grow and isn't, like, that's what people have been telling me that they want to happen. Okay, so like I remember when I was in college, I would have these, these girls, these women, they would they would ask me, for my radio show, if I was going to do any like WNBA stuff. And I was like, why would I talk about that? Nobody watches it. And they'd get really upset, right? And it's all about, well, if you talk about it, then maybe the league will grow. And I was like, that's not true. Like, we're in Arkadelphia. There's like 7 people that listened to my show back then. But here's the thing, though. Like that's been the message. The message has been we want the league to grow. And now they have an opportunity to really grow it. And they aren't taking advantage of that. Okay, the WNBA has to do a better job of protecting the merchandise. And the rest of the WNBA has to realize and just come to this acceptance that Caitlin Clark is really important. And, that doesn't mean that you let Caitlin Clark off easy. Okay, that doesn't mean that you don't, play physically with her. It doesn't mean that you don't bump her when she comes off screens. And it doesn't mean that you don't attack her when she's on defense. Like those things still need to happen. Like, there still needs to be a competitive spirit about it. But just body checking her, throwing elbows at her face, like that cannot happen. Okay, once again, if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark, nobody would be talking about the WNBA. If it wasn't for Caitlin Clark, it wouldn't be on my timeline every time that I get on Twitter. Okay? Caitlin Clark is the first interesting player that the WNBA has ever had. The first one ever. You got to do a better job of protecting her. Just, it has to happen. And Indiana Fever, you are 2-8. You're 2-8. You've had the number 1 overall pick these last 2 years. You've got Kelsey Mitchell, who looks like an all-star. The shot making that she shows, in spurts is really incredible. You got Aaliyah Boston, who was an all-star last year. You've got Caitlin Clark, who is a really good basketball player. She still turns it over a little bit too much, but I'm waiting for those turnovers to go away. Someone has to step in and defend her. Okay, like if the league is going to allow these women to be this physical, what should have happened the following possession is the girl that body checked Clark. They should have hunted her down and done the exact same thing to her. They should have thrown a box out that put her on her butt. That's what should have happened. Like you can't allow that to happen to any of your teammates, especially your star, right? Like when we look at teams that succeed in every sport, like chemistry is a real thing. That is a really valuable thing, right? Like that's one of the things that really sticks out about the Mavs and the Celtics, right? Like the Mavs, this new team that's come together, they've gelled very quickly and they are good because of it. Those guys protect each other. Like I'm telling you right now, if Drew Holiday or whoever knocks over Luka at some point, you're going to see PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. and Derek Lively and all these dudes pick Luka up, which if you notice, no one picked up Clark. Like that's a minimum thing. That is a bare minimum thing. You have to help your star get up off the ground every time that she's knocked over, and you definitely have to do it after she gets cheap shotted. Like there's something wrong there. Okay. I've heard people say that, the Indiana Fever teammates don't like Caitlin Clark, but I remember draft night and how excited they were. I remember they have the watch party at Gamebridge. And when they announced the pick, like the girls that were there, like they announce the pick and they jump up and they rip off their sweatsuits and they all have Caitlin Clark jerseys on. So I find it hard to believe that they aren't excited that she's there. You just have to actually, stand up for your teammate. Like that has to happen on every team in every sport, no matter if it's men, women, or whatever you identify as, I guess. I don't know. But like that has to happen. Okay, like yes, like the WNBA needs to step in and do a better job of protecting Caitlin Clark, but her teammates have to as well. Like they have to. So yeah, there's my rant on that. You're gonna hear a lot of people talk about that today. You're gonna tune into various podcasts and they're gonna talk about it. And here's the thing with podcasts: not everybody should have a podcast, and I'm gonna tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Hey, no matter what draws you to the water, the Yamaha 2024 boat lineup is going to make you feel right at home. Enjoy the spacious layout, the advanced technology. By the way, all standard and used to create an incredible experience. If the water is calling you, there's a Yamaha boat waiting for you. So please contact our friends at Just Add Water Boats. Go to justaddwaterboats.com. They're ready to meet all your new and used boating needs.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Just finished up talking about Caitlin Clark and, the cheap shot and the elbow from Angel Reese and, what's being lost and all that is that the Fever won the game. They've now won 2 games on the year. They doubled their win total on Saturday, which is a great reason to be excited. And, every TV show, radio show, and podcast that you tune into today is going to be talking about this. And speaking of podcasts, not everybody should have a podcast. One of those people is Gilbert Arenas. This man should not have a podcast. All he does is get on there and say completely dumb and ignorant things, okay? Dan Dockich, he's on this station from noon to 3 every day. You should listen to that. You can listen on the radio. Just turn that dial to 1430 a.m., or you can download that Indy Sports Ticket app, and you can stream it there as well. But Dan will do this thing where he's like, I don't want to hear from you unless you've coached or played. And, I used to really agree with that. Now I'm at a point where, I don't want to hear from these former players because half of them are stupid and they're bitter. Okay, there are a lot of people out there who have platforms that shouldn't have platforms, okay? There are a lot of former NBA players out there, especially, that shouldn't have podcasts, okay? And all of them, all these, former NBA guys that have podcasts, the least deserving of them all is Gilbert Arenas. He's terrible. Okay, his entire podcast is him figuring out different ways to reveal that he doesn't like Nikola Jokic. And, here's what he said literally just the other day.
Steph is not a generational talent.
Detroit.
Steph Curry.
Steph is not a generational.
Steph not a generation.
You know what a generational? Wemby is a generational person. That is a generational talent.
Steph became
a great generational means you can't mimic it. You can't mimic. You can't mimic
at number one.
Well, you said you can't. Can you mimic Magic Johnson, 6'9" point guard with the vision? No. You can't mimic Shaquille O'Neal's body.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You can't mimic fucking LeBron James. You can't mimic Wemby. Those are generational.
I agree.
It only comes once every. Right.
So
there's only 5 or 6.
Skill is based on physical
traits.
Okay.
Physical traits is generational. Like somebody like Giannis is tweaking. Right, Jokic is not a generational talent.
No.
He's just a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Curry was a great basketball player.
Facts, bro.
You know what I mean? It's different. Generational is something that's once every.
Once every.
When it comes, you're like, damn.
Sheesh, you got that?
And that's what I said. And he's had 3 of them, 4 of them.
Yeah.
That was Gilbert Arenas on his podcast saying that Steph Curry isn't a generational talent, which is absurd. And then he follows it up with Nikola Jokic isn't a generational talent. I'm of the opinion that when you say that Stephen Curry, the best shooter ever, the best person to ever shoot a basketball, when you say that person is not a generational talent, you should no longer be allowed to discuss basketball. Shouldn't be allowed. Okay, and then you follow that up saying that Magic Johnson is a generational talent because he was 6'9" and he played point guard and the vision that he had at that size. And then you say Nikola Jokic, who's 7 feet tall with insane court vision like Magic Johnson, you say that guy isn't a generational talent. At this point, you're just showing your animosity. Okay, I'm of the opinion that if you've ever been the best in the world at something, then you're a generational talent. Just my opinion. Okay, if you're ever the best in the world at anything, then you were generational at that thing. Now, if you're Steph Curry and you're the best ever, period, like he is the best shooter ever, then I would say that you're a generational talent. Okay, but to say that Steph Curry and Nikola Jokic aren't generational talents, that's a fireable offense. The first player ever in Nikola Jokic to play point center, essentially, because that's what he does. He brings the ball up the floor from time to time. They run the entire offense through him. To say that guy isn't generational is just absurd. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that statement continues to show this idea that NBA players don't like Nikola Jokic and they don't like foreign players. They don't like Rudy Gobert. obviously Jokic. Like when the Nuggets got eliminated, I'll never forget getting on Twitter and Nick Young, aka Swaggy P. Don't know why it's Swaggy P. There's no P anywhere in his name, but hey, whatever. He tweets out after the Nuggets get eliminated, "Hey, the league is finally ours again. It's an American Players League." And then, Lucas shows up and it's like, I don't really know if that's true anymore, but like they, for whatever reason, there's a lot of animosity towards these foreign dudes. And especially Jokic, because like, let's be honest, like Jokic looks like a fat slob that just kind of cooks everybody. Okay. Like I think that these NBA players, like when we look at the players that they really like and admire, like one of the biggest ones is Kyrie Irving, because like the game just looks hard, but he figures out ways to still score and do these crazy things, and he's highly skilled. I think that these foreign or these former players don't like how easy Jokic makes the game look, despite not being a great athlete. Right? That's why Gilbert Arenas highlighted these physical freaks as being generational talents. Right? LeBron, Giannis, Wemby, so on and so forth. And I would have said that he doesn't like foreign players as a whole, but like I said, he mentioned Wemby and Giannis, so we'll give him a bit of a pass for that, but it's still petty, right? And it reminds me of the WNBA and how they're talking about Caitlin Clark, and how after the game, the girl that body checked Caitlin Clark said that all that Caitlin can do is shoot three. She went on Threads, which nobody's on. I don't know anybody who has a Threads account. She goes on Threads, which is like Facebook's version of Twitter, and she said, and that's it. And this is after refusing to answer Caitlin Clark questions after the game. She literally said, quote, "I will not be answering any Caitlin Clark questions." And then she goes to Threads and she starts talking again. And it's petty. It's soft. That's what it is. It's soft. And, if you've watched Caitlin Clark play, like she's clearly more than just a 3-point shooter. So she's one of the best passers in the WNBA already as well. And like watching this video after everything that happened with Caitlin Clark, watching Gilbert Arenas say all this stuff about, Jokic and Curry, just a reminder that the NBA can be petty too. The difference is they don't body check the players that they don't like, right? And the question that I really wanted to get to with this Gilbert Arenas quote, about, him not liking Jokic and saying that Steph Curry's not a generational talent. My thing is, because it's, like I said, like it's pretty clear that there's this animosity towards foreign NBA players. Like, why don't these NBA guys dislike Luka? Like they never mention him, right? When they're ripping these foreign players, like they never mention Luka. Maybe it's because he hasn't won any individual awards yet. Maybe, if he wins a title this year, then maybe that'll change. Maybe if he ever wins, 3 MVPs in 4 years like Jokic has, the haters will start to come out. And I do think that we're going to start seeing some haters when Luka plays in the NBA Finals, because he's a fantastic villain. People in Boston are going to absolutely hate this man. I think a lot of people that just tune in to watch are going to absolutely hate Luka Doncic, because he does all these annoying things. He draws fouls at an incredible rate, where like he'll swing his arms up and he does all the kind of James Harden-y stuff to draw fouls, and he complains to refs before the game starts. Like, it's pretty incredible. Like, the ref complaining level that Luka Doncic is at, I don't know if it's rivaled by anybody in the history of basketball. I mean, like, from the opening tip, he's going to complain, he's going to talk trash, and he's going to absolutely kick your butt. And there's nothing worse than watching an opponent just crush your favorite team. And while he's doing it, that guy is running his mouth and he's complaining the entire way. Like when I think about the history of the NBA and the guys that really stick out from a trash talking perspective, like it's hard to ignore Larry Bird, right? Like he was one of the best, if not the best, trash talker ever. And Larry Bird and his trash talk and everything was a lot of fun, unless it was against your favorite team. So my parents live in Chattanooga. That's about, an hour and a half away from Atlanta. And when I graduated college, I was down there for a few months doing, some internship stuff. And I remember being at church and, guys would be like, "Hey, like you're Jonathan, you're Pastor Mark's kid. Like, what do you want to do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, like big basketball fan, want to do sports radio, love to talk football, all that kind of stuff." And then, they'd quiz me on the history. They'd be like, "Do you know who Jeff Hornacek is. I'm like, of course I know who that is. And, a guy who averaged like 14 and a half points a game for his career and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we would eventually work our way to Larry Bird. And I talk about how much I love Larry Bird, but because they were Hawks fans, they couldn't stand Larry because he kicked Dominique Wilkins' butt all the time. And that's kind of the same guy that Luke is. When you're this neutral fan, it's like, hey, like this dude talks a lot of trash, and I think that's fun, and I like that. Man, if you're rooting against him, he's the absolute worst. And the reason why I bring up Luka is because I wanted to segue into the NBA Finals, which start on Thursday. And I wanted to ask this question because this is the question that I'm always going to start with whenever I'm picking a series. Would you rather be the better team or have the best player in the series or in an individual game, right? Because I think this applies to every sport. Like when we look at the NFL and the Super Bowl, 49ers, top to bottom, better team than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs had the best player on the field in Patrick Mahomes. Okay, like that's just kind of the way that it works. So would you rather be the better team or have the best player in the game / series? Because that's what this series is. Okay, I'm going to talk about the finals a lot because it's June and I can only wax so much poetry about Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and Colts OTAs, okay? And the finals seem to be more interesting than all those things, and it should also be a great series filled with a lot of drama. There's a lot of storylines for this series. Kyrie obviously used to play for Boston. Porzingis used to play for Dallas. Dallas fans don't like Porzingis because he quit in the middle of a playoff series, and Celtics fans don't like Kyrie because he said he was going to come back, and then he left for Brooklyn. And so, there's a lot of these, undertowing storylines that are going to be, worth paying attention to during the series, and I'm having RJ Choppy from Dallas on the show tomorrow to talk more about the series. I've had him on once before. He's the guy who called the Colts boring, and you guys seem to really like that. So we're going to bring him back to talk Mavs and Celtics. But where I want to start with this series is this important question of would you rather be the better team or have the best player in the series? Because that's what this series is. The Celtics are undoubtedly the more complete team. Okay, the Celtics have been the most complete basketball team in the year, all in the season all year long. It's why they've only lost 20 games to this point. They lost 18 games in the regular season. They've lost 2 games in the playoffs. They're one of 9 teams ever to enter the NBA Finals with 20 losses or less. And when you look at all the other teams that have made the finals with 20 losses or less, it's legendary teams. It's like the Michael Jordan Bulls, and on the second during the second three-peat, it's the Warriors when they were really at their peak. There's some legendary teams in that mix. And so you've got this team, and then you look at Dallas, and it's why in the world would you pick the Dallas Mavericks to win the series? And it's because they have the best player, and that player is Luka Doncic. Okay, they also have a legendary closer in Kyrie Irving who helped close out the Golden State Warriors when they were coming back down 3-1 in that 2016 series. Okay, meanwhile, like I said, Celtics, much more complete. That's why they were first in offensive rating during the regular season, and it's why they were second in defensive rating during the regular season. Okay, the Celtics are the more complete team. They have 5 guys on the floor at all times that can shoot the ball. They have the rim protection with Porzingis and Al Horford and all those guys, and they have multiple big wing defenders, and they have terrific defenders at guard on offense. But besides the shooting, they usually have 4 guys who can put the ball on the floor and create some sort of offense. They're a very difficult team to defend, right? And when you lay out all the reasons why you should pick Boston, the list is endless. Okay, every reason in the world points to Boston winning this series. It's why the Mavs are the 3rd biggest underdog in a finals since I think ever. Okay, they are huge underdogs in this series. And so you list out all these things for Boston, and then you come back to Dallas, and it's why should I pick the Dallas Mavericks to win the series? And the answer is because they have Luka Doncic. That's the answer. And it's we have to raise the question: better team or the better or the best player? That's because that's what the series is going to boil down to. I'm going to answer that question when we come back here in about 4 minutes, and I'm going to give you my pick for who's going to win the NBA Finals. Who's going to hoist the Lombardi Trophy here in, the next month or so? That question will be answered here in about 4 minutes.
Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Income may be subject to state, local, or federal alternative minimum tax.
The stock market dropped by over
Inflation
the Federal
continues
Reserve
to be a
raised
challenge
interest
for
rates.
retail.
Let's face it, investing can feel pretty scary and overwhelming these days, especially if you're retired or close to retirement, which is why you should consider investing in municipal bonds from Henny & Walsh. Municipal bonds can provide a source of federally tax-free retirement income. Plus, an investment in municipal bonds is an investment in America. Municipal bonds help finance major civil projects across the country, like the Golden Gate Bridge and Hoover Dam, as well as local roads, bridges, and schools. Call 1-800-761-9761 right now for our informative free bond guide and learn how you can earn tax-free retirement income while investing in America's future. Just dial 1-800-761-9761 for the free Henny & Walsh bond guide. There's no cost and no obligation. 1-800-761-9761.
Henny & Walsh Inc., member of FINRA and SIPC.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets? Talking NBA Finals. We talked to little Caitlin Clark to open the show. But yeah, the finals start on Thursday, and I'm in the process of answering this question of, would you rather have the best player in the series or would you rather have the better team, right? Because that's what this NBA Finals is going to be all about. We've got the most complete team in the NBA in the Boston Celtics playing against the Dallas Mavericks, who are going to have the best player in the series in Luka Doncic. And when you hear people talk about this game, you're going to hear people say that the Celtics have multiple players who can guard Luka, and that's not true. Okay? No one has anyone that can guard Luka. Now, do the Celtics have multiple bodies they can put on him? Sure, fine, whatever. But they don't have anyone who can guard Luka. And that's why I'm taking the Dallas Mavericks to win the series in six games. Okay. I look at, picking the NBA Finals, especially, a lot like how I look at restaurants. Okay. When Amelia, my wife, and I go out to eat, it's often after a very specific food that we want identified. For me, it's usually like, I want steak. I just say the words, I want steak tonight. And then the conversation about should we go out to eat, should we go get steak begins. Okay. So we usually go to the same spot, and it's Longhorn Steakhouse because they have the best steak. Okay. I worked there for a long time. I've had a lot of Longhorn Steakhouse ribeyes, really good. Okay. And that is the best ribeye that we can afford, right? Like if we were made of money, we go to St. Elmo's like every time because, let's be honest, like they have great steak. And the conversation when we talk about where we want to go eat, whenever we're talking about steak, the conversation is never about sides. Okay, we never say, "Oh, well, Texas Roadhouse, man, those mashed potatoes, it's really good." No, because we want steak. That is what we talk about. Okay, and when Amelia and I discuss where we want to go have steak, we only discuss the steak we're going to have. Okay, we don't mention the mashed potatoes, we don't mention the fries, we don't mention the collard greens or anything like that. Okay, because almost every restaurant has good sides, just like how every team that makes the NBA Finals has good role players. Okay, we're picking the steakhouse that has the best ribeye because that's what I like. That's what I want in that moment. Okay, and it doesn't matter that much to Amelia because she usually gets, chicken tenders and fries, and that's okay. Like, she loves me in spite of my flaws too, and I just got to love her through that sometimes. So you go to a steakhouse for steak, not the sides, because that one steak, no matter how the sides taste, no matter how good or bad the alcohol is, can make up for everything else not being good. Okay? You go to a steakhouse for steak, so the steak better be good. That ribeye that you want cooked medium rare better be mwah. Like, it better be really good because that's what you're expecting. And people watch the NBA for stars because stars win playoff games. So in the NBA Finals, your star better be a level above your opponent's star. And for the Mavericks, Luka Doncic is a whole level above Jason Tatum. Okay, like, there's no one in the world except for probably like a 7-year-old in Boston who runs around in a Jason Tatum jersey. There's no one that believes that Jason Tatum is better than Luka Doncic. Okay, the team, just in basketball in general, the team that consistently generates better offensive looks wins. And I expect the Mavs to do that because they have Luka Doncic. Okay, Luka sets the table, pun intended, for all of his teammates. He does, and he makes them better. And when he's on the bench for those, 8 to 10 minutes a night, guess what? They've got a guy in Kyrie Irving who is more than capable of shouldering the offensive load for short 2 to 3 minute spurts. More than capable of it. Okay, the Mavericks are going to win this series because they have the best player. Just like how the steakhouse with the best steak wins your business. Okay, that's how it works, and that's how the NBA works. And I'm getting some comments here on the YouTube chat. If you're watching on Twitter, I appreciate it, but you should head over to YouTube, join the chat. It's a lot of fun. I'm getting comments on how my wife eats chicken tenders over steak. To be fair, Otter Creek says once you hit the age 25, it's time to leave. Chicken fingers in the past. My wife's 23. Amelia's only 23, so she's got, about a year left. Her birthday's coming up, so she's good. She's good. So, and Brian Haas, I have heard of Mitch Richmond that he could shoot it in Orlando. Okay, let me quit proving my basketball knowledge here, and let's switch over to the Colts. Right. So the Colts, OTAs, they're in full swing. Okay, that's what people are talking about around Indy, like, oh man, the Colts are going to be so good. Anthony Richardson's going on Pat McAfee's show today at 12:30. We'll be very interested to see what that interview entails. But oh my gosh, Shane. So I like Steichen, I really do. And he was asked the other day, I believe on Friday after OTAs, about AD Mitchell and how he's looking so far. Here's what Colts head coach Shane Steichen said about AD Mitchell and how he's looked so far through voluntary OTAs.
Earlier to what we said, about when we drafted him, the explosiveness that he, goes off the ball and wins one-on-ones. I mean, he's been making a ton of plays out here the last couple of days. Really good to see those one-on-one winners. So he's going to bring an element to our offense that we're really excited about.
That was Colts head coach Shane Steichen on AD Mitchell and how he's looked good to start these OTAs. And look, I grew up, still am, an Arkansas Razorback fan. Okay, like, my dad's from there. My dad's entire family is from there. Like when we go see family, we're probably going to Arkansas because that's where they're all at. And I would grow up and I would hear whoever the head coach at Arkansas was say things like that. Of this receiver, they look really explosive. They're winning all these one-on-one balls, or, on and on and on. They would just, vomit all this information and all this praise for some wide receiver. And then we get to the regular season and that wide receiver wouldn't be very good. And so I'd be like, why is that? And the answer would always be because the Arkansas secondary was worse than whoever they had playing receiver. So, in practice, that receiver would look great. And that is my question. Because let's be honest, this Colts secondary last year wasn't very good. It was young. So was AD Mitchell good? Or is the secondary that he's going up against just bad? Seriously, like, it's a very young group on the back end. And that's the area, the secondary for the Colts. That is the area I'm most interested in seeing this year. I have faith in Shane Steichen to score points. I know we talked about his play calling and all those different types of things over, these past few days, but like, I think he's a good play caller. Like, he has given us no reason so far not to trust him. Okay, we can talk about, the play call and not having Jonathan Taylor on the field and all those things in that Week 18 game against the Texans last year. But the truth of the matter is the play call was fine. Gardner Minshew just didn't make a good throw. Okay, like, you got to make that throw. It's a 5-yard swing pass to your left. Like, that's not a hard throw to make. And so, the offense is going to be fine because Steichen is going to score points because he did it last year with basically no Jonathan Taylor, and he had Gardner Minshew, a career backup quarterback, as his starting quarterback. So, not worried at all about the offense. I want to see how this defense performs, especially in the secondary. Okay, if the back end can be above average, then the Colts should have a lot of success this year. Okay, the Colts linebackers like to talk off the field. It's annoying. Like Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, don't really want to hear from you guys until football season. Okay, so yeah, but to be fair to those guys on the field, they plug the run well. They're fast, sideline to sideline. The biggest question for the Colts on defense this year is going to be that secondary because they didn't address it until late in the draft. This year, like you'd think that they'd be a little bit better with a year of experience under their belts. But obviously, we're going to have to wait and see if that happens. I'm still waiting on the Colts to go out and sign a veteran safety or a veteran cornerback, because there's guys out there like still available, like Justin Simmons, Xavier Howard, just a couple examples at each spot. So there are guys available. Like, it's just waiting on Chris Ballard to go out and make those deals. I think adding a guy at safety or a guy at corner would go a long way in helping them be good on the back end of the defense, because that is the question. Now, if Leatu Lasu shows up and he's, as good as everybody's saying that he is, then that will help the secondary, because obviously, if a quarterback has 2.5 seconds to throw as opposed to, 3.5, like that's a full second less that you have to cover the best athletes on the field. So if Leatu Lasu can hit and, these guys get a little bit better just because they're a year older, then the Colts should be fine. But that secondary is what I am most worried about. Now, I want to transition here to a segment that I'm going to call Missing Monday. I just the name is still being workshopped, okay? But it's the summer. I'm going to have some gimmicks like this, just tucked up the sleeves. And the idea here is to hit on things that are missing from sports teams / the sports world. And there's something that's been missing from the sports world for a long time. And it's something that I've never experienced, and it's something that I desperately want to experience. We need a legitimate boxing league. There aren't enough big-time boxing matches. Okay, I think one of the best nights of my life, I was, junior or senior in high school. I think I was a junior. It's when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather. And go over to a buddy's house. We're all bringing food, just having an absolute blast. And it was interesting. It was fun. And people will tell me how great fighting was, in the 80s and in the 90s with, the height of Mike Tyson was the best thing ever. That's why the boxing match of the summer is set to be Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Maybe the fight just got postponed because Mike Tyson felt ill on a flight or something along those lines. And so I want for boxing to be a legitimate thing because it's something that people really gravitate towards. It should be a big deal. And we should have one big headliner fight at least once a quarter. Okay, there should be 4 big fights a year at a minimum. Okay, I love boxing and I want it to be a more prominent sport than what it is. The UFC has really taken over the combat sports world, and boxing has to figure out a way to make some sort of comeback. And I think that there's a lane, there's an avenue for them to do it if they'll just buy into it. So these rich streaming companies like Netflix and Amazon have began moving into a space where they want to stream more sports. That's why Amazon grabbed Thursday Night Football. It's why Amazon is paying for the NBA now. It's why Netflix is going to, have a couple NFL games on Christmas Day. One of them, Amazon, Netflix, whoever, should start a boxing league. People would 1,000% pay for the streaming service to watch it. And advertisers would undoubtedly pay to advertise on it. Call it, the NBL, the Netflix Boxing League, or the ABL, the Amazon Boxing League. Like one of those things should 1,000% be a thing. Okay, they should gather the best 8 to 12 boxers in the world per weight class, put them in a league. They should give them some sort of base pay. Let's just say it's $1 million. Probably going to be more than that because there's a lot of money in boxing. And for every fight you win, you get a bonus. Okay, Netflix or Amazon should then schedule all the fights, and we should get to see the schedule for the fights at the start of the year. Okay, like that's what it should work. Like January 1st, we should get the schedule. Okay, and because look, let's be honest, like the most popular sports are event-based sports. Okay, like the NFL, it's the most popular sport in America. It is event-based. College football, extremely popular. It is event-based. Everyone knows that Saturdays are for college football, and everyone knows that Sundays are for football, right? And then we know that Monday night and Thursday nights are for football, right? Like that's why Monday night football and Thursday night football pull great ratings because people build their lives around it. They own Monday nights and Thursday nights. Netflix or Amazon or whatever streaming service, just that decides to theoretically do this boxing league, they should own the first Friday night of every quarter. Okay, they should schedule a title fight in one of the weight classes every quarter, and that should be the headliner. Like boxing needs some sort of structure. That's why the UFC has surpassed it because they have like a legitimate commissioner who like makes people fight, and that is what boxing is missing. Okay, they need something like that. Okay, like I've got people in the YouTube chat. Once again, like you should head over to YouTube, search for the Indie Sports Ticket. That way you can join the chat. It's a great time. It's just fun to interact with people on here, and the people in the chat are just they're all great. So like I'm seeing people, put stuff like I remember Tuesday night fights on USA Network. Like that should be a thing. Otter Creek saying HBO would have contracts with big time fighters. Like that's what should happen. Like some sort of streaming service or TV channel needs to step in and create some sort of league. That way we actually have the best fighters fighting each other, right? Because boxing is a great sport that really, brings people together, which is really weird when we think about, two grown men standing in a ring throwing blows, right? So that's what needs to happen. There should be some sort of commissioner to come over boxing and be like, hey, you're going to fight this person. You're going to fight this person. Don't care if you like it or not. We're paying you this X amount of dollars already. If you win, we'll give you a bonus, right? And then there should be some sort of ranking system based off of how guys win and lose. And it would be great. It would be a great thing. I think people would tune in and watch it, and it would be fantastic. That wraps up hour one. I'm coming back in 5 minutes with some thoughts on Caitlin Clark and just all the stuff that happened to her over the weekend. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back in about 5 minutes to talk a little Caitlin Clark and how this woman is not liked at all.
Hi, I'm Kelson Carter, the Prince of Plumbing from Carter's My Plumber. Lurking in your dark basement is your sump pump. Are you sure it'll work when you finally need it? Probably not. That's why we invented the sump pump stress test. For just $49, our technician will run a diagnostic test on your sump pump and battery backup system. While we're there, get a water heater sediment flush and water softener resin cleaning. All three are just $99.
859-9999, CartersMyPlumber.com. Hello, it's me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket, hour number 2. You can watch live on Twitter. Just follow us at Ticket1430. Or if you want to be part of the group chat or just the chat in general, head over to YouTube, search for Indy Sports Ticket. We should be on there. You can watch the live stream there. You can chime in with thoughts, opinions. You can comment on my awesome bright orange Reese's peanut butter cup shirt. It's pretty cool. I went back. I was looking at, some of the videos and stuff that we've posted, some of the live streams. I own like 4 shirts, and I was like, I got to spice it up a little bit. So I went bright orange today. So, yeah, if you want to see that, head over to YouTube, I guess. But something else that people want to see is Caitlin Clark. Okay, Caitlin Clark is awesome. Okay, like people love her. The media loves her. Everybody loves her, except for WNBA players. Okay, the Indiana Fever beat the Chicago Sky 71-70 on Saturday, but no one's talking about the game, which is a real shame because the game was good. Okay, like we aren't walking away from that talking about how great of a game it was. Like it was a single-digit game the entire way. The Fever had the biggest lead of the game. It was 9. And we should have walked away from this game with some sort of take of like the future of the league is bright. I can't wait to watch this Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark rivalry continue over the next, 10 years or whatever it is. Like that should have been the takeaway. We should have, in some way, shape, or form, celebrated the young talent that the WNBA has. We should have somehow, some way celebrated that like the basketball isn't that bad, that people are actually watching. Like we should be excited about these things. But instead, we're talking about the exact same thing that Charles Barkley talked about a few weeks ago, and that is the pettiness of these WNBA players.
You women out there, y'all petty, man. Hey, LeBron, you're 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty, girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world.
Yeah, you are.
Y'all should be thanking that girl for getting y'all ass private charters, all the money and visibility she bring into the WNBA. Don't be petty like dudes. Listen, what she's accomplished, give her flowers. Stop being petty, all you women out there. She got y'all ass charters. She bringing all y'all this money to the table, but y'all being petty like dudes. LeBron, you are 100% right. Y'all girls, stop being petty. Caitlin Clark, thank you for bringing all that money and shine to the WNBA.
Well,
That was Charles Barkley of Inside the NBA, friend of the program as well. Went on, or friend of the station, not friend of this program. He hasn't come on my show yet. Well, that'll probably never happen. But hey, who knows? But he's been on Dan's show. Really nice guy, obviously. And he's exactly right. Like, the pettiness of the WNBA is on full display right now, right? The cheap shots on Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese elbowing her in the face, and all this stuff. And the pettiness of the WNBA could wind up costing them millions of dollars. Okay, like the pettiness could wind up costing these players a chance at being the premier sport of the summer. Because right now, what sport do people watch during the summer? Seriously, none. That's the answer. Like, yes, there are some hardcore baseball fans out there that are going to watch, the dog days of July, right? They're going to watch regular season baseball. But let's be honest, most baseball fans, me included, we're waiting for October. Okay, like, we're waiting for things to actually be interesting. Like, the summer months are open for the taking. And the WNBA's pettiness is going to get in the way. Once again, it was a great game on Saturday, and that is what I wanted to talk about today. But because of all this other crap that happened, I can't do that. I now have to sit here and I have to talk about the drama. Okay, if I wanted to talk about drama, I'd do some sort of like reality TV show podcast about, The Bachelor and the Kardashians. I don't want to talk about drama. I want to talk about sports. But the pettiness of these women in the WNBA is an issue. Okay, now, with that being said, things should not be easy for Caitlin Clark. Okay, like, you have to expect that the players in the WNBA were going to go at Caitlin Clark because this is just the way that things work. NBA players went at Wemby this year. NBA players went at LeBron James when he came into the league. This is what happens when generational talents show up. Okay, like the professionals that have been playing that sport at the pro level for a long time don't like it, and they challenge the young players. It's a rite of passage. It's the way that things work. Okay, like, the WNBA players should 1,000% go at Caitlin Clark. They should try to make things hard on her because we, as people that view sports, enjoy competition because that's, the soul of what sports are. We just like seeing people compete, right? And if Caitlin Clark showed up and the WNBA just kind of folded to her and let her do whatever she wanted, and they didn't compete and they didn't challenge her, it would be really boring. It would be. So it's a good thing that these WNBA players are challenging Caitlin Clark, but you can't be giving out cheap shots, right? And this idea of challenging young players as they enter whatever league after being hyped up is something we're going to continue to see in the fall with Caleb Williams and the Bears. This is just the way things work in professional sports. And if you don't believe me, then let's go look at the NBA and let's listen to what LeBron James's future teammates in Cleveland said when, they knew that they had a chance to draft him.
We have better players than him in his position already on our team, though. His potential is probably sky's the limit for him, though.
Yeah, LeBron is just going to add to what we need and, just make things a little bit easier.
And he would come in and make an immediate impact like a Caron Butler, did for the Miami Heat.
I don't think you can really just bring a high school player in and really just think your team going to really turn around like that. If he come, he can just hop on our bandwagon and hopefully we can do something big.
Those were LeBron James's future teammates before he was drafted. We already have players at his position that are better than him. Maybe he can come in and have an impact like Caron Butler. Like Caron Butler did on the Miami Heat. When he shows up, he could just hop on the bandwagon, I guess. Like, this is the way that it goes. Okay, this is a normal thing in sports that just happens. Okay, like new players show up and they get challenged, and that's normal, and that should happen. It makes the games more fun and more entertaining. But what shouldn't happen, what shouldn't be allowed to happen, is dirty plays. Okay, if somebody body checked Victor Wembanyama this year, the NBA would have ejected that person from the game, fined them, suspended them, like pushed out some real punishments. Okay, this year, when the fall rolls around, Caleb Williams, if he gets hit in the head or if someone dives into his knees, even if it's on accident, the NFL is going to flag them and hurt their chances of winning. They're going to fine them for it. Like there's going to be some sort of repercussion for attempting to hurt the merchandise. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, the first relevant player in the history of the league gets elbowed in the face and they don't call a foul. Hey, fine, whatever. Refs miss calls sometimes. I get it. Then she gets body checked on non-basketball play. The ball's not even in play. She gets body checked, and the player that lays her out doesn't get ejected. That cannot happen. That girl should have gotten the Draymond Green treatment. She should have been ejected, fined, and suspended. It's flat out dirty, and you can't do that. The WNBA, the officials cannot allow that to happen. Okay, if I walked into a Nike store and I pulled out a Sharpie and started drawing on the merchandise, that store, the manager, the people that work there would immediately throw me out and potentially ban me, and they should. Right? Like they would be extremely right to do so. Like if I walked into a Nike store, an American Eagle store, whatever clothing store of your choice, and I whipped out a Sharpie and started, writing the Real Jonathan Smith Show on all of them, I should be taken out and thrown out and banned. Right? They would be right to do that because me doing that ruins the merchandise, and that is what they make money off of. Okay? And if I'm ruining the merchandise, I am therefore ruining their profits, and that is what these WNBA players are doing with Caitlin Clark. These WNBA players are hurting their most precious piece of merchandise. Okay, like this is the first legitimately relevant player the WNBA has ever had. Okay, nobody cared about Sue Bird. Nobody. Okay, that's the only former WNBA player that I can mention. The only one, right? You go through every other major sport, I can rattle them off for you. Not that difficult. The WNBA, my knowledge, ends with Sue Bird when it comes to former players. Okay? The WNBA has to do a better job of protecting the merchandise. And Caitlin Clark is by far the most valuable thing that they have. Okay? If the WNBA was a jewelry store, they would take Caitlin Clark, they would lock her in a safe, and they would put fake versions of her out for people to see and try on. Okay, she is by far the most valuable thing that the league has. Like when we look at the NBA, this is something that's different. Like if Wembanyama had gotten hurt this year, the NBA would have been fine. If LeBron James, had gotten hurt this year, the NBA would have been fine because they have multiple players that are valuable to their brand because people tune in to watch more than just Wembanyama or LeBron James or Kevin Durant or Steph Curry or Jokic or Luka. Like they have so many players that people are interested in that if someone gets hurt, it's whatever. Doesn't matter. But the WNBA does not have that same sort of luxury. Okay? The WNBA isn't careful. They are going to hurt Caitlin Clark. And at that point, their most precious piece of merchandise will be damaged. And what happens when merchandise gets damaged? The value of it goes down. Okay, if someone hurts Caitlin Clark, people will stop watching. People will stop talking about it. I can tell you right now, if Caitlin Clark, had like bruised her rib, okay, when what's her face, body checked her, you know what? I would talk about it today, and then I wouldn't talk about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark until she came back. Wouldn't talk about it. And when people stop watching you and they stop talking about you and they stop tweeting about you, your notoriety goes down, your profits go down because people stop watching. If Caitlin Clark gets hurt, people will stop watching and talking about the WNBA. And if both of those things happen, the profits will go down. The reasons why they can afford these charter flights and things is because people are actually paying attention to the WNBA now because of Caitlin Clark. It's the only reason why they can afford all of this stuff. And if these WNBA players aren't careful, they're going to go from being on these really nice private chartered flights. Oh, that sounds so nice. Instead of that, they're going to go back to flying Spirit Airlines. Okay? Instead of reaching a point where their salaries go up, because that's what's going to happen if Caitlin Clark stays in the league. The salaries are going to go up because the revenue of the league is going to go up. They're planning on, expanding this next season, which means more games. Like, there's a lot of opportunity here for the WNBA, and they're going to, burn it over pettiness because they don't like this white girl that's really good and that people enjoy watching. So instead of salaries going up and instead of flying charter flights, things will go back to normal. Right? And normal for them is irrelevancy. And who wants to be irrelevant? That's the worst place to be. Seriously. And, once again, like, they're in a perfect spot to be relevant. They're in a perfect spot to grab these summer months, to grab people's attention. And, like, people want to give their attention to it. Okay, like, there are more people in Los Angeles that attended the Los Angeles Sparks and Indiana Fever game. There are more people at that one game. There were over 19,000 people at Crypto Arena, which feels weird to say. It's Staples Center. That's really what it is. There were over 19,000 people there. The most people that attended an NBA game to watch LeBron freaking James, one of the most generational, like the athlete of my generation. Okay, like, if you were to identify the most popular athlete of people my age, it's LeBron James. The most popular, like, he's insanely popular. More people showed up to watch Caitlin Clark than showed up to watch LeBron this year. Okay, like, that speaks volumes. Like, people want to give their attention to this, but the WNBA is being stupid, and people are going to stop paying attention because of it. The WNBA has to do a better job of protecting their merchandise. Okay, and the rest of the WNBA, the rest of these players, they have to realize how valuable Caitlin Clark is. If it wasn't for her, then there's no way I would be talking about the WNBA right now. I wouldn't be bringing it up at all. Okay, Caitlin Clark is the first interesting player that the WNBA has had in the history of their existence. Okay, so WNBA players, do yourselves a favor. Quit targeting her, right? You can be physical with her. You can challenge her competitively within the sport of basketball. You should do that. It makes the product better. But don't go out of your way to hurt her. And Indiana Fever teammates, can you pick her up off the floor when she gets knocked over at a minimum? I would prefer it if you would get in the face of whoever fouls Clark and maybe give him a little shove. But, I get if, you don't want to do that. But you got to at least pick her up off the floor. That's the bare minimum right there. Like, Indiana Fever, like, you guys got to do a better job of taking care of her, right? Because, like it or not, she's your star. And, in the NBA, we see stars, they never pick themselves up off the floor, right? Teammates always run over to help them up, right? If there's some sort of physical altercation, guys step in and they protect their teammate. And the Fever have to do that for Caitlin Clark on top of everything else that I just said. This is a really popular topic. You're going to hear me, you're going to hear Dan talk about it. We're trying to get Lynn done on. I just got a text that, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening if we can get Fever GM Lynn done on or not. Hopefully that winds up happening. So Dan's going to talk about it today. ESPN's going to talk about it. Your favorite podcast is going to talk about it. And hopefully they actually deserve to have one, because there are dudes out there who have podcasts that don't deserve to have one. And I'm going to talk about that when we come back here in about 4 minutes. Summer's finally here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the summer. Every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call your cleaning pros at Zero Res and get 3 rooms clean starting at just $139. And take 20% off all additional services. This deal won't last long. You owe it to yourself, your health, and your home. Call 317-388-5141 or book online at ZeroResIndy.com and ask for the Indy Sports Ticket Special.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show, weekdays at 11 a.m. This is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 a.m., 99.5 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app. The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 a.m. and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Just talking about absurd things that happened over the weekend. I mean, Caitlin Clark, gets, cheap shotted from the back. And then there's Gilbert Arenas, who just continues to show why not every former player is worth listening to. Okay, there are a lot of people, a lot of former players out there that have podcasts, some sort of platform, and they just shouldn't have one. And of all of them, Gilbert Arenas is the least deserving. Okay, his entire podcast is him figuring out different ways to reveal that he doesn't like Nikola Jokic. It's kind of sad, but whatever. Here's the latest absurd thing that Gilbert Arenas said.
Steph is not a generational talent.
Detroit.
Steph Curry
is not a generational.
Steph not a generational.
You know what a generational? Wemby is a generational person. That is a generational talent.
Steph became
a great generational means you can't mimic it. You can't mimic. You can't mimic
at number one.
Well, you said you can't. Can you mimic Magic Johnson, 6'9" point guard with the vision? No. You can't mimic Shaquille O'Neal's body.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You can't mimic fucking LeBron James. Those you can't mimic Wemby. Those are generational.
I agree.
It only comes once every. Right.
So
there's only 5 or 6.
Skill is based on physical
traits.
Okay.
Physical traits is generational. Like somebody like Giannis is tweaking. Right, Jokic is not a generational talent.
No.
He's just a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Curry was a great basketball player.
Facts, bro.
You know what I mean? It's different. generational is something that's once every 20.
Once every.
Like when it comes, you're like, damn.
Sheesh, you got that?
And that's it. And he's had 3 of them, 4 of them.
Yeah.
That was nonsense spewing from Gilbert Arenas' mouth right there that you just heard. And look, when you say something along the lines of Stephen Curry, the best shooter ever, isn't a generational talent, you should no longer be allowed to talk basketball. When you say something absurd, like you can mimic what Steph Curry does, you shouldn't be allowed to talk. You shouldn't be allowed to talk about basketball anymore. It shouldn't be allowed. Okay, we've seen people try to mimic it, guys like Trae Young, and he's not very good. So, yeah, just pure and total nonsense. I love how he says something generational is something that, like you can, that you don't see very often. We just never seen, in the 75 plus year history of the NBA, we just never seen anybody like Steph. But yeah, no, he's not a generational talent. And then he follows that up by saying that Magic Johnson is a generational talent because he was 6'9" and he played point guard and the vision was really good. And then he follows it up and says that Nikola Jokic, who's 7 feet tall with insane court vision, like Magic Johnson, isn't a generational talent. Like, you're just showing your animosity at this point towards the fat Serbian who really likes horses. And I'm also of the opinion that if you're ever the best at something in the world, you could be the best chess player in the world, then I would say that you were a generational chess player. It doesn't matter. If you're the best at something in the world at any point, then you are a generational talent in that thing. And Nikola Jokic has been the best basketball player on the planet for at least the last 2 years. Okay, so therefore he is a generational talent. Also, if you're the best to ever do anything, like if you're the best ever at cutting grass, then you are a generational grass cutter. Okay? Look, Steph Curry is the best player to ever shoot a basketball. Therefore, he is a generational talent. And it's an absurd thing to say that Steph Curry isn't a generational talent. And it's also an absurd thing to say that Jokic isn't a generational talent. Okay, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, with Jokic, let's be honest. He looks like a fat slob and he just cooks everybody. It's got to be really frustrating for these former American players because when we look at the players that these guys like, it's guys like Kyrie Irving, highly skilled. And like Jokic is very skilled, clearly. But let's be honest. A lot of his offense is he just kind of backs guys in because he's bigger and he shoots up these little hook shots and little floaters, right? The passing is really his great skill. And, when we look at the guys that Arenas highlights there, it's physical freaks. Okay, so like there's a lack of appreciation for the actual basketball skill that Jokic has. And I would have said that Arenas doesn't like foreign players altogether, but he mentioned Wemby and Giannis as being generational, so I'll cut him some slack this time. It's petty though. Like, let's be honest. Like, the whole remark from Gilbert Arenas is petty. And you know what it reminds me of? The WNBA and how they're talking about Caitlin Clark. After the game, the girl that body checked Caitlin said that all that Caitlin Clark can do is shoot threes. She went on Threads, which is, the Twitter version, or which is like the Facebook version of Twitter, excuse me. And she said that all that Caitlin Clark can do is shoot threes. That's all she said, which is just clearly not true. Like, you've seen Caitlin Clark play. Like, she's one of the best passers in the WNBA already, right? And the NBA, this just goes to show, like, the NBA can be petty too, but they don't body check guys that they don't like. Okay, that's not what they resort to when they don't like somebody. They go on a podcast, they talk crap, and then they move on with their life. And when it comes to these foreign players, my thing with this Gilbert Arenas quote and these foreign guys these American players not liking Jokic is like, why don't these NBA guys dislike Luka Doncic? That's kind of the thing that I've noticed. Like, they never diss Luka. And maybe it's because, he hasn't won any individual awards yet. Maybe it's because no one's crowned him as the best player on the planet yet, which will happen if he wins the finals. Like, that's where we're headed if the Mavericks hoist the Lombardi trophy. Oh my gosh, the Larry O'Brien trophy. They hoist that, and that's what everybody's going to say. They'll be wrong. It's still Jokic, but if he wins title this year, then the haters will start to come out. If he ever wins 3 MVPs in 4 years like Nikola Jokic has, the haters will come out. right? And either way, Luka's going to have some haters. This is what happens when you win. Okay, like there's a reason why the Cubs still are called the lovable losers, because everybody loves the team that they consistently beat. Okay, the reason why nobody likes the New England Patriots is because they beat everybody for like 15 years in a row. Okay, and the reason why nobody likes the Chiefs is because the Chiefs have probably beaten your favorite team several times ever since Patrick Mahomes showed up. Right, so when you start to beat people like Jokic has, whether that's for individual awards or in actual games, people just start to not like you. And that is what we're going to start seeing happen with Luka, because he is a great villain. Jokic, terrible villain. Jokic wants to show up, play basketball. If he loses, he's going to go back to Serbia and he's going to ride his horses and he's going to be fine. Luka, though, nah, no way. People, especially the people in Boston, are going to absolutely hate this man. They're going to absolutely despise Luka Doncic by the time it's all said and done, because he does all the little annoying things and he's great. He draws fouls at an incredible rate, okay? And he complains like nobody else, okay? Like he's a generational complainer. It's pretty incredible to watch. Like before the game started, he's already talking to the official, okay? It's kind of entertaining, right? He also talks trash. He runs his mouth. When he's beating you, he's going to let you know. He's going to find some innocent fan in the crowd and he's going to yell at them and they're going to be like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm just here with my kid, man. Like, I don't know why you're yelling at me like that. He's great. And people don't like great players that talk a lot of trash to your favorite team. Like, there's nothing worse than watching your opponent absolutely destroy your favorite team and he's letting you know about it. Okay, like everyone loved Larry Bird, right? But here's the thing. A part of why people love Larry Bird was the trash talk, unless it was against your favorite team, right? So my dad pastors a church in Chattanooga. Love my dad. Don't know if he's watching right now or not, but Chattanooga is about an hour and a half or so from Atlanta. So there are some Hawks fans scattered in and about Chattanooga, and I've interacted with some of them, and they hate Larry Bird. Can't stand him because Larry Bird used to own Dominique Wilkins. And for their memories, it's not, Larry Bird said this funny thing. It's no, Larry Bird torched my favorite player growing up and let us know about it the entire way through. Okay, and that's the guy that Luka is, but he can be tough to root for because of all the other stuff that he does with the complaining and the foul baiting and all that. And the reason why I bring all this up is because the NBA Finals start on Thursday. I'm going to talk about the series a lot. I'm going to figure out some way to probably talk about it tomorrow and Wednesday and definitely on Thursday. Because, look, it's June. I can only wax so much poetry about Caitlin Clark and the Fever and the WNBA and the Colts and OTAs and all that other fun stuff, right? The NBA Finals just seem to be more interesting than all of those things, right? Like I had people chiming in the YouTube chat, which if you go to YouTube and you search for the Indy Sports Ticket, you should be able to find the channel. You can subscribe there, watch the live stream on YouTube, and contribute in the chat. Would love for your contributions there. Like as I was talking about Clark and the WNBA, people were like, I don't really watch that. And so I feel like more people are going to watch the finals. So I'm going to talk about it, right? It's going to be a great series filled with drama. There are a lot of these underlying storylines with, Kyrie having played for the Celtics and Porzingis having played for the Mavs. And there's all these different storylines that are kind of woven into this series. And I'm having RJ Choppy from Dallas on the show tomorrow to talk more about the series. Can't wait for that. He's the guy who called the Colts boring, if you tuned in that day. So, I know he's a winner with you guys. So having him on tomorrow. But where I want to start with when it comes to previewing the series is this very important question of would you rather have the best team or the better team or the best player in the series? Because that's what this series is going to be about. The Celtics have a CVS receipt. They have a list as long as a CVS receipt of reasons why you should pick them. Okay, they are undoubtedly the more complete team. But the Mavericks have the best player in the series. And that matters. It's Luka Doncic. And then after him, they've got this legendary closer in Kyrie Irving as well. All right. Meanwhile, Celtics are more complete. They have the better team. Like I'll never forget, when I first started doing this podcast stuff, the Lakers and the Clippers were at, peak powers. It was Kawhi and Paul George, just going back 4 or 5 years now. And the Lakers had LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they were playing in the playoffs. I believe it was in the playoffs. And I was like, if you make a list of the 10 best players in the series, the Clippers have 7 of them. And I picked the Clippers because of that. But the Clippers lost the series because they didn't have LeBron James or Anthony Davis. Okay, those two guys were awesome in that series, and they won because of it. And I'm not making that mistake again. So I'm going to pick the Mavericks. I'm going to get more in depth as to why I'm picking them when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Total sports coverage on Indy Sports Ticket is sponsored by Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6580. That's 800-583-6580.
Thanks for asking, but I'd rather not send you nude pictures. I'm camera shy. I already said no. It's against my religion. I'm giving my dog a bath. You can have pictures of that. Pressure gives me hives. Under my clothes, I'm a robot. Hold on, let me ask my mom. Sorry, my webcam is broken. I'm worried they'll get passed around school. Unfortunately, I just had my clothes surgically attached to my body. If they got out, I might never be president. I'm already naked, under my clothes. Not even if you were all 3 Jonas Brothers. I have a rash. I have nudophobia. I have lizard skin. The more you ask, the less I want to. You're not the boss of me. Nudity makes me vomit. I'm a vampire, so I don't show up in pictures anyways. Your badgering has really killed the mood.
When someone is pressuring you to do something you don't want to, how many ways can you say no before they get the message? Let us know at that'snotcool.com. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. What a weekend. Caitlin Clark getting into it with, the Chicago Sky Angel Reese's team. The WNBA version of that rivalry continues. We had a lot of college baseball over the weekend. I love college baseball. I think it's a better product than the Major League Baseball. The games just mean more. There's more energy. Guys get excited. Evansville, that's right, Evansville is still alive. They're playing ECU today for a chance to advance to the Super Regionals, which is basically like the Sweet 16 of NCAA's March Madness. So they're playing today. I'm not sure if IU is still alive or not. I'm trying to look and kind of figure that out. They are not. They have been eliminated. But East Carolina, Evansville, first pitch for that game is coming up here in about 20 minutes. Can't wait for that. Should be good. They can swing it, man. Evansville, they're fun to watch. So, if you don't have anything else going on today, you should definitely check them out. Something I'll be checking out starting on Thursday is, of course, the NBA Finals. And I think in order for everyone to make their pick on, for this year's NBA Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics, you have to ask yourself a very simple question. Do you want the better team or do you want the best player in the series? Right? Like, this is where I start when I'm making any pick, any selection in any sort of playoff format. Okay? Because, that's we have this in not in every series, but usually when you get late in the playoffs, like, there's always a better team and the other team usually has the best player. Just look at the Super Bowl this last year. The 49ers, top to bottom, the better team than the Chiefs. But the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes, and they won because of it. And that's what we have this year. Celtics, undoubtedly the more complete team, but the Mavs have the best player in the series in Luka Doncic. The Celtics, let's start with them. Like I said, and, in the last segment, the reasons to pick the Boston Celtics go as long as a CVS receipt. Okay, there's just so many things, right? They got 5 guys on the floor at all times that can shoot the ball. They've got rim protection with Porzingis, who's going to play in this series. They've got multiple big wing defenders. They're deep. They're really good at guard. On offense, outside of the shooting, they've got 4 guys on the floor at all times who can create offense. I mean, you watched them play the Pacers. That offense is legit. And they're difficult to defend and they play good defense. That's why they were, that's why they had the number 1 offensive rating in the NBA during the regular season. And they had the number 2 defensive rating in the NBA during the regular season. They are as complete a team as you will find. But the Mavericks have Luka Doncic, who can create a good look whenever he wants. And you're going to hear people say that the Celtics have multiple guys that can defend Luka. And that's just not true. Okay, no one has anyone that can guard Luka. Okay, going into the Timberwolves series, people said that the Timberwolves had multiple guys that could guard Luka. And that's just not the case. And that's why I'm taking the Mavericks to win the series in 6 games. I look a lot. I look at picking the NBA Finals a lot like how I look at picking restaurants. Okay, so Amelia and I, we sit down, on Fridays or Saturdays, and we figure out what all we want to eat for the week. And we plan to cook at home every night. It never happens. We always end up going out to eat at least once usually. And when we decide where we go out to eat, or when we decide to go out to eat, it usually starts with one of us wanting a very specific type of food. Okay, so Amelia would be like, Jonathan, I really want Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, of course, yeah, let's go. We got to go get that. Or she'll be like, Jonathan, I want to drive 45 minutes to Plainfield to eat Oasis Burger, which is awesome, by the way, if you've never been there. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. And then we make that drive. When I make the statement, it is usually me saying something like, I want a ribeye. I want some sort of steak. And then the conversation about where we're going to go get steak ensues. And we usually, not always, but we usually go to the same spot. And it's Longhorn Steakhouse because they have the best steak. Okay, the ribeye specifically. If you get a Pittsburgh ribeye medium rare, it'll change your life. Just saying. But yeah, they have Longhorn Steakhouse has the best ribeye that we can afford, right? If we were made out of money, then we just go to, St. Elmo's every time or something like that because they have great steak. The conversation we have is never about sides. Okay, when Amelia and I discuss where we want to go have steak, we only discuss the steak that we're going to have. Neither one of us mentions the mashed potatoes. Doesn't happen. Okay, she's never like, I really want to go to Outback because their French fries are just so much better. It's never been said. It never will be said. Okay, because we want steak. Like, we aren't going to go to a steakhouse because it has great sides. Because almost every restaurant at least has good sides. Just like how every team that makes the NBA Finals has good role players. Okay, Amelia and I, my wife, we're going to pick the steakhouse that has the best ribeye because that's what I like. It doesn't matter that much to Amelia because she usually gets chicken tenders, and that's okay. She loves me despite my flaws as well. This is just something that I have to love her through. So when you go to a steakhouse, you go there for steak, not the sides, because that one steak, no matter how good or bad the sides are, no matter how good or bad the service is or how good or bad the alcohol is, that one steak, if it's made properly and it's made the way that you like it, can make up for everything else not being good. Okay? And the NBA is the exact same way. People watch the NBA for stars because stars win playoff games. So in the NBA Finals, your star better be a level above your opponent's star. And for the Mavericks, it is. Luka Doncic is a level above Jason Tatum. Okay, Luka Doncic is either the best or second best basketball player in the world. I would say he's second best. And here's the thing with Jason Tatum. He might be the fifth best player. He's probably 6 or 7, but if you told me he was fifth, I would say, okay, that's fine. Right? Like Luka is clearly better than Jason Tatum, and there's a decent margin between them. Like, there's no one in the world that's smart believes that Jason Tatum is a better basketball player than Luka Doncic. Now, I'm sure that there's dudes up in Boston, who are saying that. And I was really tempted to try and do a Boston accent there. I'm glad I didn't. That would not have been good. But look, when it comes to basketball games, we know this one thing to be true. The team that consistently generates better offensive looks tends to win. And I expect the Mavericks to do that because they have Luka Doncic. Luka sets the table, pun intended, for all of his teammates, and he makes them better. Right? He does. And when he's on the bench, they've got a guy in Kyrie Irving who is more than capable of shouldering the offensive load for short spurts. Okay? That's sticking with the restaurant theme. Kyrie Irving is the ultimate appetizer. Okay? He just kind of bridges the gap until the real food shows up in Luka Doncic. Okay, the Mavericks are going to win this series because they have the best player on the floor. Okay, just like how the steakhouse with the best steak wins your business, right? So when people come at you and they say, hey, you should pick Boston because they have, 8 of the 10 best players in the series. That's probably not true, but, let's just say that's what they say. You say, that's fine, but the other team has Luka. So I'm going to pick them. Give me the Mavs in 6. I made a deal with Otter Creek. He sent me some Luka Doncic pajamas. You can find them on Twitter. If my quote tweeted that gets 500 likes and the Mavs win, I will wear those pajamas all week. So head over to X. You can follow me at __ Jonathan Smith if you want to see me wear Luka Doncic pajamas for a week. Because I'll do it. Why not? Radio's supposed to be fun. So yeah, that's available for the taking as well. Shane Steichen. Let's move on here to the Colts. Shane Steichen says that AD Mitchell looks really good to start the season. Here's Shane Steichen making that claim.
Earlier to what we said, about when we drafted him, the explosiveness that he, goes off the ball and wins one-on-ones. I mean, he's been making a ton of plays out here the last couple of days. Really good to see those one-on-one winners. So he's going to bring an element to our offense that we're really excited about.
That was Colts head coach Shane Steichen on AD Mitchell, saying that he looks nice, good, explosive, all the things that they drafted him for, like he appears to be so far through voluntary OTAs. And, it's, man, I don't know how to feel about it. Okay. I grew up an Arkansas Razorback fan. We had 3 great years with Bobby Petrino where we were really good. Outside of that, average at best. Okay. Like 8-4 has been a good season outside of those 3 or 4 years. And every year, it always happens, when the media will talk to whoever the head coach of Arkansas is, He'll be like, oh, man, we got this one receiver. He looks great. Yada, yada, yada. He's making all these plays. He's winning one-on-ones. There's nobody out here who can guard him. On and on and on about just how great this dude looks. And then the regular season would come around, and the guy wouldn't be very good. He would struggle for different reasons. I used to sit around and wonder why. And then I realized, oh, wait, the Arkansas secondary is awful. That's why he looks good, because he's playing against people that are terrible. So now I have to ask the question, is A.D. Mitchell good, or is the secondary not bad? Or is the secondary bad? Like, is he just a product of the fact that the secondary he's playing against is young and not very good? Because I think that when we talk about the units across the board for the Colts, like the secondary is the unit that we have the most questions about, right? Like we're optimistic about Anthony Richardson when it comes to the running backs and the skill positions on offense. We're like, okay, yeah, like they're good. They're solid there. The offensive line was good last year. Wasn't great, but they were good. And then when we look at the defense, they added Leatu Latu, and if he's as good as what people are saying, then like the defensive line should be better. So that's exciting. And then the linebackers over the past couple of years have been like, they've been good, but the secondary is like, I don't know. I don't know about the secondary. That's the question. That's the area that I'm most interested in seeing this year in terms of how much better have they gotten. Like, I have faith in Steichen and the offense to score points because they did it last year without Anthony Richardson or Jonathan Taylor. Okay. And that without Anthony Richardson thing isn't a dig on him. It's more of like, they were 11th in points per game scored with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. That's not super, that's impressive to me, because like Gardner Minshew is fine, but he's a career backup. That's what he's been, since he entered the league, really. So I want to see how the defense performs this year, especially the secondary. If that back end can be above average, then the Colts should have a lot of success this year. Okay, the Colts linebackers, they like to talk. They talk way too much, but they fill run gaps well. They do a good job. They move sideline to sideline, decently well. On top of that, the biggest question for the Colts on defense this year, though, is that secondary. And they didn't address it during the draft. So it's kind of like, are we just going to roll out there with all these young guys in a fifth round pick out of Auburn who's going to play safety for us? Like, is that really what we want to do? Because let's be honest, like the secondary wasn't great last year, to be fair. Very young. Like Juju Brents was a starter. He was a second round pick. So you would think that, with the year under the belt and a full off season to kind of make the adjustments needed, that they would come in and be better. That's what you would assume, right? The Colts also still have some cap space that they can throw around. Would love to see them sign a veteran safety or corner. I know I've talked to Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts about that. And, I think he and I were on the same page of like, that would go a long way in helping the Colts be better on the back end of the defense, right? So, like, the opportunity's there. Like, there are players available for the Colts to go out and get that could improve the back end of that defense. And then to wrap up the show here, kind of going in theme with, I think the Colts are missing some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. I've got a new segment I'm probably going to be doing throughout most of the summer called Missing Monday. So basically the idea is, the name is still being workshopped. I will take any and all suggestions. Please send them my way at _Jonathan Smith, or you can throw them in the YouTube chat. Missing Monday, basically the idea is I'm identifying things that are missing from sports teams / the sports world. I'm here to tell you, I think you would agree with this, we need a legitimate boxing league. There aren't enough big-time fights. The boxing match of the summer is going to be Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Maybe. The fight got postponed because Mike Tyson fell ill on a flight or something like that. That shouldn't be the case. That should not be the headline fight of the summer. Okay, like we should have one big headline fight at least once a quarter. Okay, there should be 4 big-time title fights every year. Like, I love boxing, and I wish it was a more prominent sport. The UFC has really kind of taken over that combat sports space, and boxing has got to figure out a way to make a comeback. Okay, like there's these rich streaming companies that have more money than they know what to do with, like Netflix and Amazon. They've moved into this space where they want to stream sports. Okay, like one of them should start a boxing league. Like Amazon, don't pay for the NBA. Don't pay for Thursday Night Football. Start the Amazon Boxing League. Netflix, don't pay to show NFL games on Christmas Day. Instead, create the Netflix Boxing League and kind of own that corner of the market, because people would 1,000% pay for the streaming service to watch the boxing matches, and advertisers would undoubtedly pay to advertise on it. The NBL, the Netflix Boxing League, or the ABL, the Amazon Boxing League, should 1,000% be a thing. Okay, whatever company decides to pick up this idea, because I think it's a home run idea, they should gather the best 8 to 12 boxers in the world per weight class, and they should give them a base pay of, let's say, $1 million or $5 million a year, whatever it is. And for every fight you win, you get a bonus. Okay, I'm like, okay, great. Like you won this title fight. Here's an extra, $20 million or whatever it is. Okay, like this needs to happen. Okay, like Netflix, Amazon, whoever needs to come together, and they need to schedule all the fights that we actually have like legitimate fights worth watching. Like we should get the schedules at the start of the year, and we should be able to be like, okay, the heavyweight title fight is in the third quarter of the year. The featherweight title fight, is this month. Like whatever it is. Okay, like because the most profitable sports are very much event based. Like the NFL and college football are event based. Like my Sundays are built around the NFL. My Saturdays are built around college football. Like they own those days. Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football pull great ratings because they own those nights. Okay, like it is an appointment thing. I'm hanging out with friends on Monday nights and Thursday nights, and we're watching the NFL. Because that's what Monday nights and Thursday nights are about. Netflix or Amazon or whatever streaming service should create a boxing league, and they should own the first Friday night of every quarter. They should schedule a title fight for one of the weight classes every quarter, and that should be the headliner, right? And then you of course have some sort of undercard between some of your other boxers. The point of this is boxing needs some structure, and these streaming services clearly want to incorporate sports. I think it'd be a big win for both. I want to see it. Boxing should be more prominent than what it is, because people tell me how great, it was when Tyson was at his peak, and Muhammad Ali is one of the most famous athletes ever. Like I would have loved to have seen all these guys fight growing up, and that just isn't available to us now because boxing is such an individualized sport that we don't see the best fighters fight anymore. That's going to do it for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Coming up here in about 4 minutes, it's the Dan Dockett Show, so make sure you download that Indy Sports Ticket app so you can give him a listen. That is coming up here in about 4 minutes. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 10.
Head to the Mower Shop during the Toro Spring Sales Event for incredible savings.